Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker, and this is episode number 291. Oh my gosh, we're so close to 300. It's gonna be awesome.
Wait, do we have to pay royalties on that song now?
Let's go.
Welcome to the JJ and Say show.
Yep, exactly.
JJ?
Let's go around this very large room here real quick.
I can't even say my own name.
One of the two Jasons on the show. Jason Cosper, tell us about yourself.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Jay. We're listening to the JJ and Say show.
There it is.
Keeping it live, doing it 100%, keeping it real. Yeah.
What?
Happy to be here today. All right.
Yeah.
I really want a shaker thing to rattle now.
How about you, Say? Tell us about yourself.
Hey, I'm Say. That's all I have to say. No, yeah, that's it. What do I do? Make WordPress, teach WordPress, preach WordPress at all things on Say, read media, but also I have a new company called Karen Collaborative.
Oh, but you're just gonna drop that like right now when we had like all these people on the show. We could have all talked about it. We could have all made fun of you and everything and all that stuff.
I'm low key like that. I'm also going to tell you about the project I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks that I'm going to get. That's being exhibited today. It's live and stuff, so I can tell people about it now.
Yay!
Was I supposed to? I'm not gonna do that now. You have to introduce yourself.
Sure.
Just because it's Exhibit A in a trial doesn't mean it's being exhibited. Say.
Awesome. Well, I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog, and I do another show on here called WP Lab. Go check it out at WPwatercooler.com/subscribe. We can figure out where you can get all this cool content. All right. So let's talk about your stuff real quick. Say. Let's air the laundry, as you will.
I built, and it is being exhibited. Thank you very much. It's being talked about by the mayor of my city, my fair city, Long Beach, home of Snoop Dogg and Sublime, and Cameron Diaz. Just so you know,
All right.
You should know that. What is it? So they're presenting. So I worked with the Arts Council to create. I had previously created an artist registry, which is a registry of artists in Long Beach, and now I have launched with them a public art map, which documents all of the public art throughout Long Beach. So you can go check that out at artslb.com. And feel free to send me anything if you break it. Let me know. Please go break it. It's so hard to get people to break your sites. Like when you like good user testing, like that's hard.
Like to break the internet, like an actual.
No, just like when you launch a site or when you're trying to test a site. I always want to like I give it over to people. I'm like, okay, let's check this out. And it's like I really want people to try to break things. You know what I mean? Like go in there and click around or whatever. And oftentimes when you hand over a project or it's launched, everyone's like, it's beautiful. And you're like, can you go try to break that just real quick? Because I want to make sure it works, though, still. I mean, it works. Obviously, I tested it. That's not the point. The point is I want other people to test it.
Yeah, if you keep looking at that code over and over again, at some point, you're going to want to have it tested.
Exactly. And then you never know what the user's going to do. The user, that's the beauty of the user, is that they have so many choices and they go in so many directions. And, really, user testing is all about being human.
I would have to agree.
It's really what it's about. It's about exploring the intricacies of humanity.
It's about the users, man.
It's about the users and all the weird choices that they make. Anyway, so if you do happen to go hop on over to artslb, it's .org, not .com, obviously. Check it out and break it. I'm using Facet WP, which is a really, 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 I've talked about it a bunch of times on the show, but I really like it. It's a great little piece of program in there. So thanks. Anyway, that's my story. All done.
So what did we want to talk about today? I mean, there's
besides me.
There's definitely plenty of stuff that's going on in the WordPress ecosystem itself. Is there anything we needed to discuss? Any large elephants in the room or anything we need to kind of work through? This is a therapy session for the most part.
Who wants to bring it up?
I mean, I'm streaming this both on YouTube as well as on Facebook right now, and I want to make sure that people are able to see the content.
Oh, you're streaming on Facebook again.
Yeah, I'm
You never tell me when that's happening.
No, and I tag your mom in it and everything, and it's cool.
Hi, Mom. 6 years later, yeah, I record a thing sometimes. It's cool. Don't worry. It's
like
about
every
the computer
Friday.
stuff. It's cool.
It's like every Friday. I can never remember when I'm doing it though.
Yeah, no one remembers ever. It's good. What were we just saying though about what before we started talking about my mom?
Just the simple fact that the WordPress community itself is kind of imploding on itself, and it's interesting to see the amount of movement, shaking, stuff that's just going on within the WordPress community itself. And
let's be real, okay, about this, and stop beating around the bush. When you have a shift happening, a seismic shift happening like Gutenberg, and it gets rolled out poorly with the community, this is literally for the past year, I've been talking about how there's going to be all this backlash, and I'm really concerned about this backlash. Last year we were talking about it. I'm like, I'm really concerned about the way this is rolling out. It's not rolling out well, and it is sad because the program itself, the actual software, Gutenberg, and the features and whatnot that it's doing is good stuff, and it is the future, and it really has to happen. Like this classic editor nonsense is like, okay, it's great, but it's also, you know, literally circa the 2000s. But that being said, if we obliterate the entirety of the WordPress community on our way to the future, there will be nothing there when we get there on which we will be able to sit with our laurels and our Gutenberg. Like, it won't do us any good if we've, you know, annihilated the community.
I totally agree.
With that being said, I hear Ghost is really nice. So, and that was,
but it only supports like 0.0000001% of the internet. So I don't know how.
Absolutely.
Is that a good thing though?
I think we have, I don't know, is that a real question?
Yeah, like, is that a good thing? I mean, because the reason why most folks jump on the WordPress bandwagon is the simple fact that if you're not a coder, you can just install a bunch of plugins that somebody else coded, may or may not have been a good coding method, but then take that code and throw it into their website and ta-da, instant functionality, and you didn't have to either pay for it or you pay.
I mean, you still have to pay for it. You just don't have to pay, you know, custom build this brand new thing again.
Right.
And also, people really forget about if you do buy and build custom code, you have to continue to upgrade and maintain that code on an annual, probably more than annual basis. So people who compare, like, you know, they're like, oh, I could just have this custom built one time versus all these costs of WordPress.
So how do you navigate that thing, Oscar? I know you're probably joking a little bit, but like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you tell a potential customer, a potential client, any of those sorts of things? Like, how do you even talk about that?
Well, I think it's interesting, and I think one of the reasons that Matt and the larger core WordPress team, who's really just pushing so hard on Gutenberg, they see a lot of threats. They see something like Ghost getting better to a smaller extent, but they also see threats from Squarespace, who just, because they're a startup and well-funded, has a crazy advertising budget. Like, I see Squarespace ads, like, while I'm watching TV, like we were watching Goodfellas or something the other night, like the edited for TV version. And like, I saw maybe half a dozen Squarespace commercials in just like, the span of like watching the movie on like a Sunday afternoon.
It's all like it. It's literally the only commercial I am shown is Squarespace.
Yeah.
I think they're just doing it to piss me off.
Yeah, and then there's Shopify, which can't be ignored and is really cutting into the market share on the e-commerce, WooCommerce side. There are some very credible threats to the dominance of WordPress as a platform, and that, frankly, scares the crap out of a lot of the core developers who have built WordPress. Like, Matt just wants to see that number keep going up, and I don't blame him. Like, from something that started 15 years ago as a software project that he just wanted to run a blog off of to what it's grown into today, it's phenomenal, and you want that to keep growing. You don't want it to stagnate. You don't want it to fail or kind of stall out. But the problem is like pushing these changes as kind of Say touched on, at the cost of your community. at the cost
Right.
of the people who have helped you build these products. Like, look at what happened in accessibility with pushing Gutenberg into core. They didn't have people who were familiar enough with React to actually work on some more like really important parts of accessibility, and that is suffering in something that is about to ship to tons of people
Yeah.
like very soon.
It's almost like there should,
That
instead
date
of
is
being,
always
instead of being
debatable.
classic press, there should be like ally press. Like there should be this, like, if you're gonna fork it for a good reason, not because you want to make it sound like it's a classic rock station, and rather have it be actually be something that is. I mean, I work at a church, and the churches always want to make sure that our stuff is accessible. I mean, we have a special needs group that's here. We have plenty of folks that have very specific things that they need to worry about in order to be able to navigate the web. And if you're not looking at them, you're essentially leaving customers high and dry.
If people, and especially with Gutenberg, if people who want to use the new editor can't use the new editor because of accessibility problems, like you are, I mean, WordPress is supposed to be giving a voice to the voiceless. It is supposed to make publishing easy for everyone. And basically by taking accessibility away, by deprioritizing that, they're snatching a voice away from people.
Yeah. They're also cutting into, and I don't like to say they because it sounds like there's this like amorphous they, you know, like making, you know, some sort of secret council, which I guess just so you know, the Growth Council does not do any sort of secret amazing things. Just so we're clear on that. But I was like, wait, there is a secret council. That sounds bad. What was my point? My point is that a lot of government sites and municipalities and things like that, entities like that operate with WordPress and use WordPress sites. And those are required by federal law to be accessible and to maintain their accessibility on both sides, both on the front end and on the back end as well. So, you know, and we're definitely, the rules and the regulations are all moving towards requiring that kind of accessibility. And so without that as one of the kind of main goal points, or at least trying to keep that in the vision, that whole market could literally just be taken away like that. They would have to leave. So if we're I am a huge proponent of Gutenberg. I'm not a huge proponent of false timelines. I think things should launch when they're ready, not just because a date happened. You know, with this accessibility conversation that's happening, and you know, why would we want to make these choices for the sake of a date to alienate huge parts of our community who are committed to the actual WordPress community, and possibly force customers to leave because of that same reason? None of that makes any sense to me. So,
but say if they don't hit the date, then Matt will have nothing to talk about during the State of the Word. Nothing to talk about.
That's a horrible way to look at it, but I totally get it.
True. I think that's true. And I honestly am like, I think that last year, you know, at the State of the Word, like that was a big topic of conversation. And honestly, you know, I'm going to see, I think that's ridiculous.
But do you think that the
That's all I'm going to say. I think it's ridiculous.
But do you think that the State of the Word is also essentially a shareholders meeting for a bunch of people that are putting time and effort into an event like that? I mean, if it sounds like
it is to an extent. I think that's actually a really good description of it, because the people who are at WordCamp US are generally stakeholders in the community. They're, you know, people who are coming from a they're coming from all over. It's not a local situation. It's people who are coming there in order to, you know, have those conversations. So it's totally a shareholders meeting. It's a great.
I mean, there's also, I mean, when you have a business like that, if you are, you know, operating as a business, not just a nonprofit, but also just speaking to that community, but also speaking into the fact that, well, let me go back to what I was trying to originally say is that when you do something like that, you're going to talk about the profits that you had this year and the losses that you had this year and do your whole financial statement. You have people in the media and you have certain folks that are allowed to like speak into these things. And it's not just everyone kind of talking to each other, but you can actually be like, hi, I'm a shareholder. I was wondering, blah, 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 blah. And you can kind of speak that way. You're able to do that a little bit within the state of the word, but it's very limited because of the amount of time that's been made available to it.
I really think that that Matt can, and he can be presented with an opportunity here to reframe the state of the word, to basically say, listen, we are going to launch this. I mean, the day that they've announced that that 5.0 is going to come out is what, like the week of Thanksgiving in the US. And of course, America is not the world. That's fine. However, a very large swath of the people who work on WordPress are in America. It's a big thing. Black Friday, there are a ton of people who are just basically going to put off upgrading their sites because they're like, oh, I've got an e-commerce site. I cannot upgrade before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, any of that other stuff through like the most critical time of the year. So there are going to be all these people who are basically like, okay, 5.0 is shipped. Like I'm not going to be able to do anything about it until January. There are people proposing that we push the release date to January. And I think that's a good idea. And I think that if this gives Matt the opportunity to, like I said, reframe it. So basically almost like not necessarily an Apple event, but just some sort of like Apple, Microsoft, whatever, Google event where it's like, here's what's coming. They don't say, the iPhone, when they do an Apple event, the iPhone is coming out today. They say, okay, you can order it next week. You can order it 3 weeks of lead time on here's the stuff you can get your hands on like in a month from now or 3 weeks from now. That's not that bad. That actually gives people more time to get excited about a thing.
But I don't even think, especially to the people that are at WordCamp US, we don't necessarily have to hype Gutenberg to these people, right? Like everyone's like, yeah, we know. For the most part, that audience,
I have concerns. I have concerns.
There's some pretty salty people. Yeah, some pretty salty people who are just like Gutenberg. No, I mean, look at all the people who are forking off Classic Press.
That's totally what he did last year, though. The thing he was like, check it out. Here's all the cool stuff. Here's what's coming. And I feel like there's definitely pressure to have that done. But honestly, I think. Not even looking at, oh, here's our new feature. We're not Apple. We're not Microsoft. That's not what this is. And everyone talks about WordPress and they talk about the community of WordPress, right? That's its huge strength. Like Alex Vasquez did this, kind of contest, web building contest with one of our small business development center people. And they did Wix and he did WordPress. And it was the WordPress community, because Alex was able to post in the Facebook group and get a whole slew of responses back. That was what gave WordPress the edge, even in that silly little competition that they were just having for show, for some workshop. But like for the community is the strength, and to get up there and instead of being like, oh, here's all the features that are coming, random people out there who are buying our product, which is not what's happening, talking about it as like, hey, we've been doing these things with Gutenberg and we've had these issues of accessibility that have come up because our community is aware and cares and is, saying things. We've had issues of compatibility over here. This is what we're doing to address the concerns that have been brought up over here. This is what we're going to do to address the concerns over here. By the way, tomorrow's contributor day. So if you want to talk about accessibility, go to that. Like, why do we have to launch? Who are we launching for? Like what? Who is it? Like, who are we trying to please besides the concept that there was a date?
Yeah, like, exactly.
I mean, yeah. Matt, it can't just be all for Matt's ego. Like, I don't think he's actually that egotistical of a person. I just think that sometimes you get really focused on having a thing and comparing WordPress with Apple or Microsoft and think, oh, you got to have something to debut. No, we don't. We can do whatever we want. We can be different. We can talk about our community. Matt could get up there and talk about how much growth the community has seen and how these conversations have influenced the shift of Gutenberg. Like, that's really interesting. Let's go through that. I
don't know how like the WordPress.com, who is the biggest user of using WordPress, as one large entity can be okay with the open source product that's being generated that has Gutenberg in it. Like, I don't know how they could be okay with it. I know there has to be plenty of accessibility minded folks or accessibility required folks that are having to look at this and say, or going to have to look at this and say, well, is WordPress still the thing I should be using? Should I be using something else instead? You know, should I be shopping around here? Is there something else that's out there? Does that Weebly thing do, you know, screen readers? Does that, you know,
Squeebly.
does that
Square bought them. You have to call them Squeebly now.
Squeebly?
Squeebly. Way more fun than just Weebly.
But how do you, you know, what are those folks going to have to do? Because they didn't get to pick anything. They just got this thrown on them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, this isn't just like, hey, here's the new features in this launch. This is like, hey, look at this thing we are all building together. Look at this open source community. Like, that is, to me, that's the feature. It's not a bug. Wait. The community is not a bug. It's
but the WordPress.com folks didn't have anything to do with that. Like, all WordPress.com is customers of them.
No, what do you mean?
If my mom was selling
the users of WordPress.com, yes.
That's what I'm saying.
A lot of the feature development has been driven by automatic employees.
I'm 100% looking from the user's perspective. Someone who is a consumer of WordPress.com. Like, they are using WordPress.com to build their website. They're selling their thing on there. Though? Those folks didn't have any choice in the matter at all of having Gutenberg be applied to their particular site or to the entire ecosystem that they're working through.
Well, it hasn't been applied there yet either.
But it will be. I mean, all things go to WordPress.com. There's not a single thing that doesn't show up on WordPress.com.
They are also doing the same thing with Classic Press. It's the same. They're having the same thing. Like, this is not even a... This at this point is not even a forced hand, right? This is a fork. It's like we're forking ourselves.
Right, but WordPress.com is not a fork, though. That's the thing. WordPress.com is a massive multi-site that they manage.
Right, but you're going to be able to, on all those sites, still be able to activate the classic editor. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about a fork. Like, it's just like how everyone's going to fork their own sites if they go classic editor versus Gutenberg. Like, we're introducing a fork. We're like, it's in the freaking prompt field. It's like, which one do you want? Which direction are you going in?
How many WordPress.com users are using Calypso, the Calypso interface, though? I mean, a lot of them, when you go visit WordPress.com, the default view for a lot of people is that, you know, Calypso. Like, you're not looking at actual WordPress. You're looking at the Calypso app. So
right, but also I'd like to point out that Gutenberg looks like Calypso. So the transition from Calypso to Gutenberg, which I don't know, it's actually not a transition from, it's an incorporating into. But the that transition, you know, it's not that's not going to be as difficult for people on WordPress.com actually, as it will be for users of WordPress.org, because the post editor and the page editor have that format already with the right hand style stuff. So their shift is going to be much more subtle. I mean, technically, right? Like, all of these companies, like the people who are hosted on WP Engine, right? There's automatic updates for that. Like, do those people have a choice in the fact that they're going to be upgraded and move forward? You know, like.
So as somebody who spent a considerable amount of time in the early days of WP Engine, and I'm pretty sure they still do this, when a new version of WordPress is released, especially over the holidays, they tend to delay it until January. So if there's a new, pardon my dog barking in the background, if you can hear that, if you can hear, or if you can see a new version of WordPress get released, say December or so, they're like, hey, we're not going to upgrade that over Christmas.
They don't want the support drain. Like, they're not trying to pay all their employees overtime to be on support while everyone's calling them saying, what's going on? Why is this broken? Let me explain Gutenberg to you. Like,
especially over the holidays. So
I mean, January.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. You were asking about choice, right? So, like, in a lot of these cases, the choice, if we're talking about this typical user, the choice has already been put into people's faces with the 4.9.8. Like, people are not making, like, they're not as nuanced about this. They don't realize, oh, 5.0 is here, it's Gutenberg. They saw the prompt, like half the people I know clicked yes, install, and then it broke it, and then they're like, never mind. And then the other people clicked it on and now are using it. And they're just like, okay. Like, they're not like having a philosophical conundrum. The user's not in this space. This is only the community that is having this philosophical conundrum. The users are like, just don't tell me about it until it's ready. Because I don't want to like have this like nightmare of whatever is happening. Just make it work. Don't break it, and let's move forward when it's here. But
we're not going to tell them it's ready because it's not ready, but we're going to launch it. So what are we going to do then?
I don't know. This is why we're having a problem.
Like, from an accessibility
we're telling
standpoint,
them we're going to launch it.
Not ready.
A program that's not ready, and like, I just keep getting hung up on what is this date situation going on. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know what we're trying to beat.
Like, who's the competition that we're worrying about here in the open source space that we need to really worry about? I mean, is Squarespace open source? Is Wix open source? Are we racing against them? No, we're not racing against them.
Like, I would like to point out that I'm pretty sure it'd be real easy for Squarespace and Wix and Weebly and anyone else, Shopify, to be in the WordPress chats and listen to all of this. So, I mean, I'm sure we all know that, but like, they know what's happening with us because of this is it. Like, this dysfunction isn't making, you know, WordPress look strong. You know what I mean? Like, unless we address it and own it and claim it as a strength and say, hey, this community conversation, if we actually listen to our community and have the conversation, can lead us to something. It's like crowdsourcing. It's what the whole thing is about. It's supposed to be a strength. It's not supposed to be something that's like dismissed and, you know, kind of like ignored. And then, you know, that can just get capitalized. Like, if I were Squarespace, I'd be like making a freaking campaign about it. Like, why wouldn't they market that? Like, this is the time to do it. Oh, having problems with your, you know, whatever.
Oh, I think that there is going to be one of those type of holy war type things, just like how T-Mobile treats the other, you know, carriers, where it's just like poke, 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 prod, prod, prod. That's gonna happen.
They already did that. There's that commercial with the dude with that T-shirt.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I don't even remember what that was for, but you know, it's kind of going in that direction. I don't know. I would like to get to WordCamp US and not have Gutenberg. Like, if Gutenberg launches right before WordCamp US, it's going to be like a fiasco at WordCamp US. And now everyone's going to be like having like going to be at fisticuffs. Like,
I would like to not go to WordCamp US because I don't want to deal with all the baloney.
Yeah,
I'm trying to keep it PG, Jason.
Yeah. No, I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm very interested in seeing what's going to end up happening with this, but I'm not entirely sure.
The accessibility thing takes this from an issue of marketing and an issue of positioning, like market positioning, and moves it into a product issue. Like, this is a product issue where you are going to be hurting your customer base. And that is not, that's not okay. Like, you know, date or no date. If someone goes, hey, there's a huge product flaw happening here, you don't launch the product unless you're Apple, and then you just make all those people do it. But WordPress is not Apple, and there's no competitor for Apple, right? I mean, you know, there's a bunch of competitors for Apple, but there's no competitor. But there's tons of competitors for WordPress, and people will switch. They will do it. I want to know what's happening. I'm fired up.
Your Tesla, or your Tesla, and you just somehow fix a engineering problem with a software update.
Right.
I don't know. Can we not compare WordPress to actually maybe that's the best comparison right now.
There's a bunch of cars out there.
No, just in terms of like company structure and like, you know, people alarming people with proclamations about stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to examine that analogy a little bit more. Oh, well.
We have 1 whole minute left.
Did we solve all the problems, or did we just confuse ourselves more?
I think we did, sir.
Here's my solution. I'm just going to give it to you. We need to own this conversation. We need to have this conversation, and we need to have this conversation in full and not cut it off because we've reached some arbitrary time limit.
I agree.
That's what I have to say about that.
All right,
have
folks,
a conversation.
Go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com/subscribe. You can learn to subscribe to all this fun stuff. Go over to all our websites and take a look at all the fun stuff that we're doing over there.
They're on WordPress. They're built on WordPress. They're all up for now.
He uses Ghost for some reason. I don't understand that, but hey, whatever. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.